Okay guys, welcome. Today's video is going to be kind of an interesting one. Anyway, I tend to do a lot of cooking. I would say that, no joke, I cook at least, make something food-wise at least, 4 times a week. I would say that that's a pretty safe bet right there. And I like to use my expensive pocket knives to do it. And what I have for you today is some specific pocket knives that in some way, shape, or form have been touted as, food prep knives. And I thought I would show them to you. This isn't going to be a review of the knives individually. It's not going to be like a full-fledged review on them, but I just figured I have to make some more salsa because the last batch of salsa I made went in like 1 day, 2 days, something like that. It was crazy. So I'm gonna make some more salsa because after having homemade salsa, store-bought salsa just is not gonna cut it for me. That's just all there is to it there. So I thought I'd make some more salsa, and one of the things that I like to do to test a knife, its edge performance and geometry, you can really tell a lot about a knife by cutting a tomato, especially cutting a soft tomato. I just find that I really can tell how good a knife is going to perform as a food prep knife by just cutting one thing, and that's a tomato. And we got some tomatoes, so let's get out a tomato and we'll start this. I've got these kind of in no particular order, but here we got the famous SpydieChef. The SpydieChef is touted as a food prep knife in some shape, fashion, or form. We'll cut up a tomato here and we'll kind of, I'll tell you about my experience. Oh, by the way, each one of these knives I have pretty extensive experience using them in the kitchen. So, I have used them a lot. So I have a lot of experience with them. It's not just based on this video. So I will talk about my experiences. So here's the SpydieChef, and the SpydieChef really does a fantastic job. The curvature of the blade really allows you to make some nice cuts. And then one of the nice things about the SpydieChef is you can do, you can rock the blade. It's got a rocking motion because of the curvature. So when it comes to cutting food, I like a subtle kind of curvature to the belly. So basically what I'm saying is a knife having a extreme forward downward tip along with a belly is what really performs well when preparing food, just to give you an idea. I have another knife that I use for food prep a lot, but I didn't include it in this test. It's kind of an honorable mention. I just don't think it performs as well as these knives I'm going to show you today because it's got a fatal flaw. The scale sticks down too far, and I hit it on the cutting board, too much to ignore that. You know what I mean? Like it's so often and so frequent that it's probably, not a knife that you could be used, and it's not designed to be. And that is the Spyderco Caribbean, the sheepfoot version. That knife is really good at food prep as well, but just not quite on par with these ones here. I'll cut a couple of tomatoes each, and then at the end of this, I'll go ahead and rate them first to last, in my personal opinion and my experiences using them. And that should give guys an idea. I mean, this is kind of cool. This is how I justify having so many knives, is because I use them so much. If I didn't use my knives for EDC purposes at work and so much, at home, I just don't know if I could, justify let me move these. These are different tomatoes I wanted to use for these are older tomatoes here, so I want to make sure that I use these first. Oh, whoops. We're moving on to the next knife. Let's go ahead and set that one down. The next knife we have here is, what is this? The Civivi Mastodon. I believe, you know, they have two different versions of this knife. One has like a fuller here in the blade, and it runs on bearings. This one has washers and is shaped more like a cleaver, got the cleaver hole, and I can't remember, is the other one called the Mastiff or something of that nature? I just can't remember. But this one here is the one designed for food prep. And I bought this specifically to cut up vegetables for my guinea pig, and it's been working pretty good. So let's see how it cuts tomatoes here. And this is made, oh, I forgot to mention the SpydieChef, of course, most of you know, is LC200N blade steel. This is 9CR18 MOV, you know, basically the Chinese alphabet soup steel, but this is one of the better ones. I have had no issues with rust a lot of times, like right now that SpydieChef is sitting over there off to the side there, wet and, you know, just air drying before I get a chance to do anything with it, kind of thing. And I've had no rust issues with any of these knives, actually. This one sporting an edge that I put on it immediately out of the box. Immediately out of the box, I was not happy with the edge on this knife. It just wasn't good. Again, take a look at the shape. It's got belly, and the tip is dropped as far as you can drop a point. And that's the way I like my knives for food prep. So there's one. Let's cut up another one real quick. This knife performs quite well. It's pretty thin behind the edge. Like I said, this is not going to be reviewed, so I'm not going to give you dimensions and behind the edge thickness, things like that. I wouldn't be using it if the geometry was not good, but as you can see, it's quite good. I mean, I think you can visually see that by how well it's making these cuts. This is a good one. And these tomatoes are about a week old. These ones I'm cutting up right now, that's the reason why I'm cutting them first and separating them from my fresh ones I just got, because I want to eat the week-old tomatoes first. So anyway, there's a couple of, couple of tomatoes with this one, and this thing is ergonomic, really comfortable. It's quite a large knife. It's a much larger blade than the SpydieChef, as you can see. You know, you're looking at, you know, quite a bit longer blade right there. So let's move on to the next. This here is the Spyderco Kapara. And the Spyderco Kapara, this is an exclusive version and 20 CV, so it's a little bit more uppity than your stock Kapara. So I don't know if that means a lick of difference or anything. It's an S30 Vive one would have the same attributes and things of that nature. Just wouldn't hold an edge quite as long as this one. As a matter of fact, this is still sporting the factory edge. I've never sharpened it, never had to. It just goes through tomatoes like like a laser beam. You know, this is my opinion on the Kapara is quite good. This is a really good blade, forward down tip, got some belly. You know, you keep your hands from hitting the cutting board again on this with this curved up handle, this positive cant handle. It's it's a really good food prep knife, and as a matter of fact, over the course of time of using this knife here, I find it to be a better food prep knife than it is an EDC knife in its current the way it currently sits out of the box, and that's because the scales on the Kapara are completely smooth. They almost have no texture or grip whatsoever. I mean, I just find when this handle gets wet that it's really difficult to hold on to this knife, and I don't like it. I've contacted some custom scale makers to make a custom set of scales for this thing to fix this problem for me. Like I was thinking some micarta or even G10. I would be okay with some textured G10. This is G10, but it's completely the texture. There is no texture. It's completely slick and smooth, and I do not like that. So can't remember if I cut 2 with that or not. It doesn't really matter. The Kapara is a definitely stellar performer, to say the least. Okay, now the next one. This is a knife that a lot of you probably have never seen before. This is a NOC Knives Chef, and again, you know, in some way, shape, or form is for food prep. So the blade steel is VG10 on this one, all titanium. Got some really pretty milling. It's a really good looking knife. Keeps your hand off the thing. Down tip, slight belly towards the tip. It's more like a Kapara in that respect. The blade shape is kind of similar to a Kapara, see, but not quite as upswept towards the tip. But that being said, this is another knife that straight out of the box, I needed to put an edge on it. I was not happy with the edge on this knife when it came out of the box. You know, and I would say that happens to me more than 50% of the time. So it's one of those things that, you know, just happens. This tomato right here is a tad on the squishy side, so still cutting it quite well. I think since we have 2 tomatoes left, I think we will just cut one with this one, because this is the knife that I have the least amount of experience with, but I still have used it quite a bit. Once I sharpened it and put my own edge on it, I have not had to sharpen it again. The VG10 is holding up just fine. I was kind of concerned about that because now I've become kind of a steel snob in a way, and I was just kind of concerned about VG10, but it has been of no problem whatsoever. So we'll set that one down. And our final contender, which is the most expensive knife in this entire deal here, is the LionMahcuff 4. Now, this knife is awesome. I mean, for what this knife costs, it should be awesome, and it really is awesome. It's handily, you know, beats the snot out of these other knives, you know, with ease, really. But there is an Achilles heel to this knife that if you're like me and you want to use this for food prep, really just it's kind of a bummer. I wish they wouldn't have done it, and that is that this knife runs on bearings. And most of the time, it's fine. I haven't had any issues with it. But one time I cut a roast with this, and then that's when that became a problem. I got a bunch of meat goop up into my bearings, and I had to take this thing completely apart and clean the bearings. But cutting vegetables, I've had no issues whatsoever. As long as you cut vegetables with this, it's awesome. And I really love this knife. I really love to use this knife. This thing cuts amazingly. It's Elmax, and I will say that when I pulled this out of the box, this had the worst edge I have ever seen. The very first use of this knife, the edge folded like a cheap suit, scared the bejesus out of me because of what this knife cost. So I was not in any way happy with the edge of this knife when it came out of the box. It was more than horrible. Worst edge I've ever seen. I've never seen an edge fold over completely on the first use. and it was unusable. It was completely unusable, and like 3 spots on the blade, the edge completely folded over. So I put a new edge on it, and I've never sharpened it since. I have not had any problems with this knife since. And I've used the bejesus out of this knife because it's my favorite. Well, I guess that cat's out of that bag now that I said that. I wonder if I should edit that out. That kind of takes away some of the suspense, but maybe it doesn't, because it's my favorite to use. But I just don't think we can ignore the bearings in this knife, because I think a food prep knife, or a knife that you're kind of touting as a food prep knife, I mean, it really has to have washers. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. If you don't think that, let me know in the comments what you guys think on that. That's one of the things that about this knife that I just have a problem ignoring, is that this knife has bearings in it, and that I gummed them up completely cutting meat. I hosed them up big time to where this knife had no action. And this isn't a review of this knife, but I'll tell you, the action in this knife is amazing. But we're not going to be here to review that. We're just talking about using folding knives for food prep. So let me go ahead and put these in the order that I feel that they go in. Okay, and how many total are there? There are 5 total. So at number 5 is the Civivi Mastodon. I think it's Mastodon. The other one's called the Mastiff, I think. Bull Mastiff, okay. I think I got that right. Okay, now, next in line, I think I have to go with the Kapara because of this handle. Man, this knife would be like a game, I mean, totally change if this handle didn't bother me so bad. That's just my personal opinion. I don't like the handle on the Kapara because of its slipperiness. Not its shape, not its ergonomics, none of that. Just the slipperiness of the handle when this handle gets wet. I mean, I feel like it becomes dangerous to hold on to. That's how I feel that. So I'm gonna say it's definitely better than the Civivi, but that's where I'm gonna put that one. The next one, I think I'm gonna go with this one. This one is 3rd place right there. No real reason really, other than the blade steel. I guess that's what I'm knocking it down for is the blade steel. Other than that, this knife performs really well, and it's actually about 80% of this knife right here. It does have washers. This has bearings, but you know, when all things considered, this knife here is about 80% of this knife for about 150 bucks. This one's a little over 300. So if you're looking for a knife like this, if this knife, you know, it speaks to you, you're almost there with this knife. So then the next knife is going to be a bit of a surprise for people, and I think I'm going to have to go with the LionMahcuff KUF4 because that the bearings, if it wasn't for the bearings, it's an easy win, but the bearings are what really keep this knife from being my favorite, the one that I will grab more than anything. The knife I use in the kitchen more than any other knife. I use this for not only cutting up stuff in the kitchen like you see me doing right now, I also use this for my knife when I'm eating food, chicken, steak, whatever the case may be. This is the knife that I always go to. I grab this above all others. I use it more than anything. This knife has a bucket ton of use on it, and it's all because of this blade shape. I wish they made a SpydieXL, a SpydieChef XL. I wish this knife had a blade this big, you know, but that's the only thing that keeps this from being absolutely amazing and perfect for me, is that the blade, in my personal opinion, is a little on the small side, but the shape of it is amazing. I love the ability to rock through vegetables. You know, it's just a handier way to cut things sometimes. You know, this entire like rocking, I don't know if you guys can see that with the camera, but I like rocking my cuts, and I really enjoy this knife a lot. It's ergonomic, and even though it doesn't have traction, I feel like I can hold on to this knife. It's like, I don't know, flatter. It's got some angles. It's got some, I never worried about this knife slipping out of my hand. It's comfortable in all kinds of angles. So there you have it, guys. All these knives right here, you can't go wrong with any of them. But these are the pocket knives that I make food with. I thought I'd share that with you. And let me know in the comments. I haven't reviewed any of these knives. Not a single one of these knives have I done a review on. Let me know in the comments if you have a preference of which one to review first. Which one do you want to hear about first? Which one are you most excited about hearing about? I would say probably not the SpydieChef, because everybody and their brothers reviewed the SpydieChef. It's been out for a while. A lot of people have it. Really popular knife. I would say the Kapara too. That's my personal opinion on that. So I would say between these three here, which one of these three here is the one you'd like to see a review on first? Again, guys, thanks for stopping by and watching my videos. I sure do appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one on any.